Happy Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, January 17th, 2022. Today's daily Bible readings come to us from Psalm 46 through 17, Isaiah 53, 1 through 12, and then Hebrews 10, 1 through 4. I'm going to take a look at Hebrews today and talk about a different way of talking about sin. So, what we see here is talking about sin as a nature, a part of our being, and not merely as an act. Most of the time, when we talk about sin, or when you hear people talk about sin, or their sins, or his sin, or her sins, or their sins, we always like talking about their sins. Um, we have, I think, in our mind, like the things that people do, right? Which is part of it, right? We do things that are sinful, right? Commit acts and things like that. So it's like the individual transgressions, and that's what we usually think of sin as a nature, instead of sin as a nature or part being, not just an act or individual transgressions. I'm trying to say. So Paul, and I put Paul in air quotes here because this is Hebrews, traditionally attributed to Paul, but we don't really know for sure. So just say Paul. Paul speaks of it more like it's in here in Hebrews, he's speaking about sin more like it's a defective part or an illness that, let's say, must be removed from a person to make them whole. That's the language that we see going on here. It's something, it's a thing within you that needs to be dealt with, right? So that's, he says, why sacrifice, specifically sacrifice for sin. Keep in mind that in the ancient world and in the world of the Old Testament, not all sacrifice was just about sin. There were shared offerings and shared sacrifices. I think I've talked about this before. The idea is if you're going to have a bunch of friends over to the house for, some good beef barbecue, there was a specifically proper way to sacrifice, to kill the animal, and the idea is to offer a portion of that to God as kind of a Thanksgiving, well-being, friendship offering. So, and other things like that. It was a much more complicated system than I'm just alluding to here, but specifically when he's talking about sacrifice for sin, as in the law, what the law requires, you could think of it as it's really just a medicine that only treats the symptoms, right? He says here it's a shadow of the good things to come. That, it's like a medicine that treats the symptoms, and the symptoms are our sinful acts, but it never treats the root cause of the disease itself. It never cures the actual disease, right? And so the system of sacrifices for sin, they just deal with the sins themselves, the guilt from those. They never deal with the actual thing that's causing you to do all these things, the root of your being, right? They're not curing that. And he says it just serves to remind us that there is a problem. It's just a shadow of the real thing. It's like having to take a medicine every day to alleviate the symptoms of a disease that you can't get rid of. But the good news that we're given in Hebrews is that there actually is a solution. There actually is a cure that transcends what the sacrifices for sin are just a shadow of, right? They're just a shadow of the good thing that is to come and has come. Anyway, that's the DBR for today. Get out, enjoy the day, and we'll talk to you later. Boop.